Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Aussie StarCraft. We're bringing you some more amazing Heart of the Swarm action. This time it's going to be from IEM Cologne. There's just been far too many requests for some games to be cast from this most recent IEM tournament. For those of you who aren't aware, it took place about 2 weeks ago. I was in fact in Japan at the time, which was nowhere near the tournament, just so we're clear. I was on holidays in Japan, but it certainly took a stack of time to watch the tournament as it took shape. It was extremely entertaining, some of the best StarCraft 2 we've seen thus far this year, and so I couldn't wait to get back and cast some of the amazing games for you. We'll be casting games from the round of 8 today, and we'll see how many of them we can get through. Just some awesome games. So without further ado, in the top right hand corner is our blue Protoss player. It's going to be Classic. In the top left hand corner is our red Terran, feared and revered by foes and fans alike. It is CMStormPolt. So it's going to be a Terran versus Protoss game here on Frost, and super excited for what these players have in store for you. Obviously a big Polt fan. You can see a stack of his games here on the channel. Obviously Polt had a fantastic year last year in the WCS, winning back-to-back WCS North America titles. So just proving to the world that he is in fact one of the best Terran players out there at the moment, and particularly in this tournament, in an environment where a lot of Terran players seem to be struggling. Polt showing us how it's done. We'll see if he can keep things alive here in the round of 8, or whether Classic, who's just been playing some amazing Protoss during this tournament, will be able to feed him a few slices of humble pie. Looks like Classic's going to be opening up with a gateway, so we'll see how whether he decides to go quite aggressively off this, whether he decides to go for the gateway expand that's become quite conventional in the current meta game environment. First gas going to be taken for Classic. Looks like we have Polt likewise taking his refinery first. So this could be for either a quick factory, or more likely, as we've seen out of Polt quite regularly, will be for an early Reaper scout. So we'll see which of those two options Polt decides to go for, and either of them are quite effective. The early factory always nice to put the pressure on. Certainly allows for much quicker medevacs, though that Reaper is quite essential for early scouting, particularly against Protoss who tend to have so many flexible openings that can do devastating early damage to a Terran. Things like proxy oracles or early dark or high Templars can both cause a fair amount of chaos in the Terran's base. So Polt, it looks like, has decided to go for that early Reaper, and it looks like Classic's going to be throwing down his cybernetics core and going for what looks like a very straightforward Protoss build. Second gas still not taken, so it's usually a good indicator that we're not going to see something like a Dark Templar rush or a proxy oracle play. Normally expect the second gas to have been taken by now, as either of those options tends to absorb quite a lot of Vespene gas. So we're waiting for this game to get underway. Just like to bring you up to date with a few things on the channel. Things have been going great. We've had some new subscribers. I hope you're enjoying your time here on the channel, and we've been casting a lot of MLG's game on. Cast a good proportion of that tournament, but with the caliber of play of these games here at IEM Cologne, I did decide we'd skip over the last parts of MLG's game on and move straight to this tournament, because I just watching it, I was absolutely blown away, and you will be too. Much like this drone that this first scouting Reaper's picked up. So already managed to do a little bit of damage with the first Reaper, and every kill you can get is certainly bonus damage for a Reaper. You build them predominantly for the scouting, but any damage you can do, certainly very valuable indeed. So Reaper going to get forced back by the Mothership Core, and we do have the start of a gateway expand here. First Stalker is on the way now for Classic. Looks like Polt likewise thrown his command center down on the low ground and grabbed a reactor. So first few Marines coming out for Polt, and Polt actually significantly thinning his Vespene gas harvesting, which is quite a dominant tell here. It's going to show us that Polt is going to focus on a much more mineral heavy opening. I actually have this Reaper sneaking back into the main base and managing to pick up a kill, so very nice micro from Polt, actually managing to sneak it around a Stalker and a Mothership Core. well, a Stalker that's about to pop out around the Mothership core into the probe line and nabbing a kill before making it safely back out. So that's some nice control out of Polt there, and certainly some very valuable intel. Though this Stargate that's just been thrown down has been thrown down behind the scout, there is a good chance that Classic may well be able to sneak an Oracle out of this Stargate undetected. We'll see if Polt can scout this in time. Reaper does look like he's making his way back, but there is a Mothership core and a Stalker here ready to try and deter this Reaper. So we can see that Classic's investing quite a good deal of effort into trying to ensure this Oracle gets out quickly, but the Oracle is a fair bit later than you'd ordinarily expect. So Polt will have a number of Marines here. We already have 4 in play between the bases and bunker out to establish some protection out the front of the base. This Reaper going to try and make his way up, but the Stalker on the high ground going to be very persuasive and in trying to indicate to the Reaper that he should scout elsewhere. Stargate almost finishing up here, and we'll see whether it is going to be an Oracle, and indeed it is. So that Oracle is going to be posing a threat to the mineral line. Unfortunately for Classic, there are already 6 Marines in position for Polt, so timing this Oracle a little bit late. Plenty of defense already in play, but the real question is will Classic be able to make something happen at the second base? We've got 3 workers here already exposed, a few Marines heading down to the bunker, but as of yet not a whole lot in the mineral line, so we will see what Classic's able to get done with this Oracle. And behind this actually throwing down a forge as well, so looks like Classic's going very light on the production. We still only have 1 gateway on the field at the 6-minute mark, so it is fairly light. The Stalkers were almost able to clean up the Reaper, but actually this Reaper's going to sneak up the cliff and get a great scout off. So Reaper's actually going to see this forge before it dies. If we check Polt's vision, we can see that indeed he can see that forge under construction. So Polt going to have an idea that this is slightly a slightly interesting build. He expected more production, knowing that it isn't on the way. Didn't see these gateways. Polt does know that he is quite safe at this point in time. He has quite a few Marines and Marauders out already. Stim pack almost halfway done, and Polt knows that his production is well ahead of that of his opponent. This Oracle trying hard to nab a few kills in the main base, but the Marines are continuing to force the Oracle out. Going to grab 1 kill there, but the Marine's going to force it down into the second base. The second base, however, also heavily defended with Marines, and the Oracle will be able to make it away, albeit already down to half health. So Classic actually going to throw down a Twilight Council now, and this is quite reflective of what we've seen a lot of thus far in this game. Normally you'll see Protoss players go for Robo and Colossus and then transition at a later stage into the High Templar tech path to try and avoid the Vikings, get some DPS in the form of Storms. But lately in the tournament we've seen a lot of Protoss electing to go straight for Storms, and it seems that Classic's going to decide to go for that route in this game. +1 armor well underway as well. Going to line up nice with the stim pack that's almost completed for Polt, along with the combat shield. So other than that, no upgrades started as of yet for Polt. So quite slow. That the 1 gas harvesting that went on for some time for Polt going to have slowed down his upgrades a little bit. If we look in the units tab, we can see there's substantial force already out on the map for Polt. 20 Marines and 4 Marauders, as opposed to 3 Zealots and 2 Stalkers. So quite a heavy-handed approach from Polt this game, and substantial force about to move out. This Oracle continuing to scout around. You'll notice that rather than throw this away, Classic's being very careful, trying to use it to stay on top of Polt's army, understand where they are, and try and read the fact that they're moving out. In fact, we'll move down here and spot the reinforcements. So Classic going to be very aware of the pressure that's coming down. As you can see, there's a great disparity between these 2 armies. The 5 Marauders, 25 Marines, compared to 2 Sentries, 2 Zealots, and 2 Stalkers, and a number of Zealots. So it's going to be a little bit of work for Classic to hold this. Luckily for Classic, there's no medevacs on the field for Polt yet. Otherwise, Polt would be able to put the pressure on at the natural and then medevac straight into the main. But Classic should be able to hold here with the Photon Overcharge. Storm not ready just yet, but we have a number of High Templar warping in here. Potential for Archon, certainly going to help provide a lot of the DPS that Classic will need to hold this off. And it looks like the photon overcharge is going to go down very quickly, so one Marine will fall to the Nexus, but the remainder of this bio will fall back outside of the range of that Nexus. Interesting enough, it appears that the rocks were revealed along with the bio army, so if those rocks go anywhere, they certainly won't be sneaking up on Classic. He has a perfect vision of them sitting there, so a little bit interesting that the casting works that way, but pretty neat. You'll learn something new every day. You can reveal rocks for all the strategic benefit that provides. I love what Polt's doing here. You can see him actually spreading out his Marines. Going to be trying to get a read on when the third base for Classic comes down. We have a Marine at each possible expansion, even one Marine searching for potential hidden expansions. You can see him on the attack move command covering all of these southern bases. So Polt certainly wanting to ensure that the Protoss don't sneak one over on him, having just started his own third command center. So in a comfortable position for Terran. You tend to like to be one base ahead of your Protoss opponent, particularly being on equal bases in a matchup where you tend not to trade favourably. It can really hurt you if you're on equal bases with a Protoss, but Polt well ahead of himself there. Third base going down now, along with the medevac production now kicking in 2 at a time. So Polt looking to put on a lot of pressure as we come into the mid game, and Polt very well known for his multitasking, very capable with it, able to put pressure on in one position while dropping a simultaneous second or even third location. Medevacs are a key part of the pressure that he tends to try and put on his Protoss opponent. But well ahead of the curve. Looks like Classic's going to elect to go for a few Phoenix to defend this. I've got to say, I love this move from Classic. Great read against an opponent like Polt. Obviously familiar with Polt's playstyle, knows how well known he is for dropping, and these Phoenix certainly going to do a great job of preventing some of those drops, depending obviously on how they're used. But you can see Classic getting very active with them now. This Protoss army moving out, and looks like Polt actually caught unaware. Force Field's going to cut up this army in half and allow Classic to get a very quick victory there. The Phoenix actually going to be picking away at this medevac, and this is a very difficult position for Polt to be in. Some nice micro is going to pick off one of the Phoenix, but these Zealots just continuing to hack away at the Marines, even using some energy to pick up a few of those. Those poor Marines are going to go down in a blaze of Psy Blades there. Medevac here going to continue to get whittled away by these persistent Phoenix. One more shot will send that Medevac crashing into the abyss. The poor pilot flying for his life here. Marines trying to cover the retreat, but unfortunately as soon as that medevac boost wears off, that medevac will in fact go down. A few more Zealots here going to try and clean up the remainder of this force, but retreating to the high ground and unloading should keep the remainder of those force alive. Looks like Polt actually moving out with a second fairly substantial drop here, and this force going to be able to push straight towards a natural expansion. A few High Templar here. Storm hasn't finished up. Moments away from finishing up here, so in seconds there could be some Psionic Storms left to defend. Another Photon Overcharge on the Nexus going to help push this back. Those Templar now with almost sufficient energy to storm. Storm having just finished up. We have one Storm on the field, potentially 2 Storms ready to go. So Polt will be forced back here. This force not quite sufficient to break through, and having to be very careful to avoid this Protoss force that's moving in to cut off their retreat. Looks like Polt is going to work away at this pylon, picking off from the low ground. That's a great move from Polt, going to give him the opportunity to drop there at a later point without being spotted quite so readily. Looks like Polt's even going to try and produce a Widow Mine, though I guess I don't think that's the safest rally point that it could have. So we'll see if anything comes of this very adventurous factory, or if it just gets plucked up by this Protoss force as it moves out. We are down to 1 Phoenix, and it looks like Classic's actually not going to be producing any more Phoenix. And I've got to say, I think that may actually be a mistake on Classic's part. He's done a great job with the Phoenix so far. It has certainly inhibited Polt's attempt to drop him. We'll see if he comes to regret this halt in Phoenix production. Looks like Polt's actually moving out with several groups of forces here. One large group in the main of the map, a second auxiliary drop force moving along the top of the map. Hasn't been spotted as of yet, but there are a few Zealots here in the main base. We have Classic taking up position to defend his third base here. The Widow Mine unfortunately getting spotted by the Observer, going to get cleaned up by those Zealots, though it is going to get a kill on the poor Zealot who ate the Widow Mine, the sacrificial Zealot there. Second Widow Mine going to go down. Actually may even detonate. No, fortunately for Classic, manages to clean that up before it detonates. This force in the middle of the map is baiting the Protoss army out of position. The question is, what will Polt do with this? Is he prepared to drop the main base, or will he just fall back and wait for a better engagement? Looks like Polt is in fact just going to move back and secure his third base. Not a whole lot in the way of defense, and very vulnerable location. Potential for things like war pins from the bottom, or a warp prism quite in close proximity to this. The third base on this map tends to be quite difficult to secure. There's very large avenues of attack from either direction, and just quite hard to secure in general. The alternative third base up at the higher location is very vulnerable from the top of the cliff. It looks like Classic here going to decide to be the aggressor, trying to posture, see if he can catch Polt on the back foot, but Polt already with plenty of ghosts on the field, 6 ghosts already on the field. He's going to make this Zealot Archon Eye Templar build quite frail. Normally is a very durable force to move forward. We have Classic with a Warp Prism full of High Templar with the Storm drop on top of the army, so Warp Prism going to be keeping these High Templars safe, as Classic just on the front foot here, dropping storm after storm from the safety of this Warp Prism, and Classic is driving Polt backwards and up his ramp. These Marines just eating the face of those 2 storms, and what a move from Classic. I love the use of that Warp Prism, completely kept the High Templar safe. Look like Polt actually going for a counter attack, while his third suffering from Classic's push there. Is the natural of Classic going to be under fire from Polt's counter-attack. Polt tries to stream into the Nexus. The robotics facility is exposed here, and the robotics going to get sniped before the Immortal can be produced. Will it go down? A few Zealots making their way. Big storm there, but the robotics, it does go down. The third base of Polt forced to lift off, but unfortunately Classic not following this up. This third base is going to be able to land and continue mining. Looks like Classic's going to try and put some pressure on the front base, but he's morphed all his High Templar into Archon, so the burst damage not as substantial as it was before. Classic going to be forced back, but and Polt managing to hold that. But what an impressive push from Classic there at the 15-minute mark. Traditionally, this stage of the game sees Protoss as being extremely weak against their Terran counterparts, but Classic showing us that the Warp Prism bound High Templars are very effective at proving the point, and prove it they did as they pushed their way well up into the natural of Polt. So how will Polt respond to this? Looks like we have a drop force that's preparing on the base side of the map. Third base here potentially vulnerable from the side. There is another Warp Prism full of High Templars, but this one seems to be hovering around the main base. The question remains, is this a defensive storm drop, or is it an offensive one? And normally you would think one wouldn't drop High Templars to be defensive, but if you think about it, there's quite a speedy response that Classic can muster using this Warp Prism. So we'll keep it selected for the time being, see just how Classic decides to use it. We have Polt in a position here with 2 drops, and a drop inside the main, very large drop. And we do in fact see the Warp Prism making its way over here, so Warp Prism actually going to be used defensively. Great storms on top, but even better splitting from Polt, and these High Templar getting picked off. They do a lot of damage with that storm and take the bite out of this drop, but there's still enough bio here to do some damage. Stargate now unpowered, and these gateways starting to take a lot of damage. And obviously one of my friends on Starcraft a little bit upset about the SEA region, but we're at IEM Cologne subnormal. Take a break. Alright. Classic here mopping up that drop. The defensive Warp Prism showing just how Protoss players can defend against those drops. That unfortunately for Classic, that this small force that hovering by his third did manage to swing through and take out the Nexus. So Polt with his Classic multitasking able to do sufficient damage to set Classic back. Did lose a lot of units. We actually see the supply. It is starting to level out now, but for a moment there, Classic was actually leading the supply race against the Terran. So not something we're used to seeing. And actually interesting that Polt has kept his base at this third location, obviously not wanting to lose the mining time. See both our players hovering under 100 minerals, so you can see just how close this game is. Both these players going tooth and nail. Polt here working down every angle he can, taking out this additional pylon so that no pesky warp-ins can be caught. And it's actually done a great job of really slowing Classic down. He hasn't been able to warp in quite as many of these Zealot counterattacks that we tend to see from Protoss players. Unfortunately for Classic, he's unaware of the fact that this base is down here. If we go to Classic's vision, we can see he actually hasn't scouted that base. So this is actually providing quite an economic advantage for Polt. He's a base up on what Classic thinks he is, actually throwing down a fourth base here at the top location. So we can see both these players fighting tooth and nail. What a close game it's been thus far. We had Polt take substantial damage for that early aggression, but really started to level things out, particularly with the Nexus snipe in the last set of drops. Polt showing us just how good he is at those multi-pronged drops, able to put a lot of pressure on Classic from both angles, and we see Classic trying to force his way through yet again. We have Zealot Archon going to town here. These Zealots just tanking so much damage. The Archon's behind it. We have 9 kills on one Archon, 3 on another, 10 kills on this Archon. Archon with no shields Polt really needs to snipe that Archon. 2 shots from virtually any unit would in fact kill it, but unfortunately Archon's going to continue to rake in the kills here, up to 14 kills, and forcing this bio back up into Polt's main base yet again. Though the real question is, will Classic be able to maintain this momentum? There is quite a few ghosts here, going to clean up these Zealots very quickly. Nice EMPs is going to drop the remainder of these sentries. The Archon will go down, and it looks like Classic will really have the teeth pulled out of this attack yet again, so unable to make it into the natural. But another big warp-in. Polt going to exploit this warp-in cycle by going for the third base yet again. Counter-attack from Polt. He's just so good with this. The same force he did it with before. The pylon goes down. These 2 reinforcing Zealots going to get picked off very quickly. This oversaturated base does look like it may take a lot of damage. Polt going straight to town on the workers here. He knows these workers are crucial to the economy. And a big storm though is going to severely delay this. A warp-in of a Dark Templar actually certainly going to help fend this off as well, as Polt's not going to want to waste a scan for a single DT on the other side of the map. The attack from Polt will get cleaned up, so Classic managing to save his Nexus this time, not letting it fall, though he did certainly lose 10 workers there. So nice bit of damage from Polt there, certainly took the pressure off his main base, which was one of the purposes of that counter-attack. And we can see Polt actually establishing a 5th base away from his opponent. So we see Classic here, now that Polt has got away with a 4th base down in this location, while his 3rd base that lifted off earlier actually going for an extra base as well. So this is going to give Polt a significant advantage. He's almost a Terran on 5 bases. He can drop his mules in this fairly safe location and mine out a very distant target, as opposed to these bases that are much closer. We have a Dark Templar making his way into this expansion, but missile turret's going to be able to see him. How many kills can the DT get? He's up to 3 kills now. When will Polt react? It's going to be 4 kills. So DT actually going to be midget mugged by workers here. DT up to 7 kills. The workers furiously try to work their way through his armor. It does go down there. The Zealots the Ghost managing to clean that one up. We have a drop just waiting to make its way into the main base of Classic. Warp Prism full of High Templars standing ready at the defense, but Polt not ready to engage just yet. His main force moving out into the middle of the map. You can see how Polt does this. He's just so good, not going to go forward with the drop until he's got pressure on another location. Very small forces, but very capable of inflicting precise and pinpoint damage. So Polt's drop here at the top going to be sitting out. This force actually making its way behind the 3rd base of Classic, and this Nexus could go down again. A lot of storms landing on top of those units. Polt going to be forced to lift off here. A lot of feedbacks on the medevacs as well. These Zealots tanking a little bit of damage for this High Templar. Nice micromanaging to keep him safe, and that drop will be forced back. Pylon going to be dropped to repower the Stargate. I imagine that Classic's going to want to build a Phoenix or something out of this to try and force this fairly sizable Doom drop back away. Polt going to be dropping to heal these units here. Phoenix actually going to find its way to these units, but obviously this Phoenix means business. Plans to go up and deal with these pesky medevacs. A little bit of long range mining going on here at the old 3rd base of Polt. But fourth base obviously suffered a little bit of harass. I imagine from a Dark Templar, though we've missed that in the crazy action that's been this game thus far. So we have Polt trying to make his way up with his force again. A massive amount of Zealots going to counter-attack here. Phoenix going to try and take out these medevacs, but unfortunately for Classic, his attention split both ways, is going to get gunned down by the miniguns of these Marines. Unfortunately for Polt, though, his second drop in this side of the map going to meet much stiffer resistance from this Zealot Archon composition. So both our players trying to stabilise here as Polt drops what is now his 6th base back in his original 3rd base location and just continues to power the production. But Classic actually hovering 20 army supply above Polt at this point, so certainly doing very well there. My main concern though is just how much of its Zealots. There's 40 Zealots in this composition. 12 High Templar is a lot of damage, but 40 Zealots a lot of supply, 80 supply tied up in what can be quite flimsy units. They are fairly tough, and I know what you're saying. They are armored. They have 3 armor, giving them a total of 4. But once that shield goes down, the Zealots are very exposed to the high DPS of the Terran army. We have this army from Polt trying to make its way around. This persistent storm dropping from Classic, just doing a lot of damage to Polt. And Classic trying to make his way up the ramp, but looks like Polt's going to play Ringer Rosie with him, using this terrain to great advantage, and this is where the weakness of these Zealots goes in. The Zealots spent 5 or 6 seconds not actually attacking anything, and Polt can continue to stim and run back. Every time their legs are off cooldown, the Zealot's going to take a lot of damage, and we see Polt using the terrain to his advantage yet again, clean up a High Templar. They're just going to continue to use this edge against the Terran player. Nice storm there, is going to do massive damage to those Marines and Marauders. Nice warp in on the high ground from Classic's going to attempt to clean up these reinforcements, but there is quite a lot of Marines and Marauders here, and these Zealots and Archons going to take a lot of damage. Might be worth it for Polt to fall back into the bunker. Unfortunately, looks like he's just a little bit slow to make use of the bunker. The bunker going to go down there, but Polt's reinforcements already grouping up on the high ground. Classic just continuing to warp in wave after wave here. Is Classic going to be able to break Polt here? Polt has a substantial amount of reinforcement, still 4 Marines and 7 Marines and 4 Marauders at a time. If he can just buy 30 or 40 more seconds, he may be able to hold this, but a massive warp in of Zealots here on the high ground. I can't help but feel Classic probably should have mixed in a few other units. There is 2 Dark Templar in there, so that was a nice choice there. Polt can clean up this detection. If Classic can clean up the detection, Polt could in fact take a lot of damage from these DTs. Certainly doesn't have the energy to spare on a storm right now. All of it going into that economy at the moment. Polt bringing the remainder of these forces up. Looks like he will be able to hold his main base, but only barely, as Classic put on a phenomenal amount of pressure with that push. But Polt looking like he came out ahead there, 116 supply to 74 in this back and forward game. The question is, what's Classic's plan now? He's mined out of his main base, natural almost mine outs, mining literally off one almost completely saturated base. We have a 4th base just being thrown down now, but when we compare that to the economy of Polt, Polt has potentially 1, 2, 3, 4 locations that can mine, 2 of which are currently mining, 2 more of which could be mining with mules, or the remainder of these SCVs that are now wandering their way back over to the old 3rd base. So the economy of Polt certainly going to be in a lot better shape than Classic's, certainly going forward in this game. So particularly if we take a look at Classic's position in the game, clear that Polt has an economic advantage here, but the most important thing for Classic at this point is to protect this nexus. This nexus is what Polt's going to make a beeline. We can already see his units making their way towards it. He knows that things have to be tight for the Protoss. He's been keeping an eye on these expansions, knows there is not another Protoss expansion on the map, knows that it's not at this location. There's only one viable shot for Classic to have dropped it, and we can see Polt's units already making their way towards it. So this game will come down to how Classic can defend this 4th base. If Polt can snipe this 4th base, then Classic is going to be in phenomenal trouble in another minute or 2 when these mineral patches run out. A big Doom drop from Polt in the main is going to split Classic's attention. We have Classic just ripping out the Protoss infrastructure as he multitasks and takes out the 4th base as well. So looks like the multitasking of Polt is going to be able to break through Classic's defense here. Classic pulling back to try and protect the vital infrastructure in his main base. Did lose the Nexus there. The Forge is about to go down. Most of the upgrades done. 3-3 not on the way though, so no particular use in destroying that Forge just yet. Nice Storm on top of the Time Warp. Nice defense there from Classic, but unfortunately Medevac's going to be able to evacuate those units, and the 3rd base now, all it stands between Classic and certain defeat here in Game 2 against Polt. View DT is going to try and equalise this. Nice Storm on top of the army, but I think Polt can taste victory here. He's redropped the main base, tearing out the remainder of the Protoss infrastructure, and he has managed to blast his way through to this Nexus. So things looking particularly grim here from Classic, and I think we will be seeing the ending of this game very, very soon. But what an amazing game from both these players. Classic just showing us how to use the Warp Prism to maximise your High Templars. Managed some very impressive attacks at such an early stage against Polt, and Polt just able to hold by the skin of his teeth and push back with some excellent multi-prong aggressions. The sort of multi-prong aggression we've come to expect out of Polt. Another Storm, another great Storm, going to clean up a lot of these Marines and Marauders, but unfortunately 4 Marauders going to be more than enough to stop these probes from long distance mining. And unfortunately for Classic, I think that may well be game for him. 1 Archon gonna clean up the remainder of the drop, but what Classic has to ask himself is, how do you go forward from here? How do you recover from 100 supply differential? And the answer is, unfortunately, against a player like Polt, you don't. So great game out of both players. Absolutely ecstatic to have cast that, and that is the quality of the caliber of games you can expect out of IEM Cologne. We've got a lot more coming up here on the channel, so if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We have some more of the amazing games from IEM Cologne coming up right after this. We may cast some more Polt vs Classic, or we may skip to some of the other amazing games in the round of 8. We'll be casting a stack of the round of 8 before we move on to the finals and semi-finals. So hope you've enjoyed it. Go ahead and share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, all the social media goodness. And we'll catch you here in the next cast. Thanks, guys.